Band versus band. Feuds between two groups have been going on since groups have formed. In the world of heavy music, the war on words definitely has caused some problems over the years. Sometimes brutal and fierce, sometimes whiny, pathetic, and hilarious. This video is going to look at 10 rock feuds between bands. There are way more than 10, I know. I can't include them all, however, as these are just 10 that stand out. Feel free to leave a comment on one of your favorite band feuds. This video is not a top 10, no ranking, just a list. Also, I'm not counting it when members in the same band feud with each other, because that's a totally different list. This is when one group hates another group. You know how these videos work? Let's get to it. Let's go back to the early 90s and the changing of rock music in general as the glory of hair metal rock ballads was fading while alternative and grunge were about to explode. Guns N' Roses would not go out quietly, especially when some of the brats in Nirvana were getting a ton of attention extremely fast. Axl Rose is not one to let someone he doesn't like get the limelight. It started when Nirvana turned down an opening spot on tour with Guns N' Roses. It's weird to think that a tour like that could have been proposed in the first place, but when Axl found out, both bands took it to the next level for years with the Snark tour with each other. Axl then stepped it up a bit at the 1992 MTV Music Video Awards when Kurt, wife Courtney, and young daughter were backstage. Courtney yelled out, "Axl, you're the Godfather!" and everyone snickered. Axl looked back and told Cobain to keep his woman in line. All of Nirvana and everyone around started repeating that line and snickered more. After Nirvana's performance of Lithium, Dave Grohl started shouting, "Where's Axl? Hi, Axl!" at the camera. Where's Axl? Hi, Axl! Hi, Axl! Hi. But even after the awkwardness and tumultuous time for both groups in coming years, it's all water under a bridge now. Things were finally smoothed over. In 2016, Dave Grohl even let Axl use his guitar throne. Class act.
All right, Guns N' Roses!
We'll keep going with Guns N' Roses for now because who didn't Axl and company love to annoy back in their heyday? When it's all contained within glam rock and hair metal though, there's bound to be a hairspray fire. This feud, however, was much more than just insults as some fisticuffs and accusations of assault arose. According to Vince Neil, GNR guitarist Izzy Stradlin allegedly assaulted Vince Neil's wife while on vacation. Fast forward that year to the MTV Music Video Awards where all the action always happens, and Vince Neil punched Stradlin right in the face following a Tom Petty performance. Axl took this as offense and then challenged Neil to a fight in Atlantic City where only good things happen. Vince Neil said he wanted to do the fight in a different location. Eddie Van Halen even offered money to book a venue, and that fight never happened. But boy, the bad blood continued for a long time after 1989. Both parties have said their side of the story, and Ricky Rackman back in the day even helped give his take on it all. But it has still led to the same situation of bad blood. Even now, things are not exactly peaceful, but then again, when Axl Rose is involved, sometimes peaceful is asking too much. One thing about the late 80s and early 90s is that many rock bands had a chip on their shoulder and were ready to prove something to another group they didn't like. Red Hot Chili Peppers, oddly enough, had several, and one band you'd think they would get along with would be Faith No More. Nope, didn't turn out that way at all. It started with the music video for Epic. On paper, there's not much to get mad about at all, but Red Hot Chili Peppers were quite upset, saying that Faith No More was ripping off Chili Peppers' look and style, especially in the video. This resulted in Kiedis responding, "My drummer says he's gonna kidnap Patton, shave his hair off, and cut off one of his feet, just so he'll be forced to find a style of his own." First of all, Faith No More is amazing. Second, really? There's a million people in 1989 looking exactly like this. Mr. Patton then decided to get back at Red Hot Chili Peppers and parody them at a Mr. Bungle live show. That only made Chili Peppers angrier. The groups hated each other for a long time. What's the lesson to be learned here? Don't look like Anthony Kiedis. Dave Mustaine. I'm pretty sure I could just end this one short and leave the reason for the feud between Metallica and Megadeth at that one name, but it's worth highlighting some of the points as the feud and bitterness did eventually lead to all parties around Dave Mustaine on both sides that were able to finally reach some sort of peace. It's a nice story for Reader's Digest. Mustaine was sent packing from Metallica due to too much drinking and drugs back in 1983. A long bus ride home from New York to LA created enough bitterness paired with massive talent with a guitar, launching Megadeth. For decades, there was a war between two bands that went from Dave to band members to fans back to Dave. Part of it was even addressed almost 20 years after Mustaine getting the boots, when the confrontation in Some Kind of Monster was shown between Dave and Lars Ulrich.
My God, Lars, you guys woke me up and said, you know what, you're out. And I asked you, what, no warning? I said, no second chance. And you guys said, no, go. I wish that James was here. I wish Cliff was here.
Time heals all wounds is the quote, and for the most part that's true, as Dave has been able to reconcile with Metallica, as well as even doing the Big Four shows. Things may never be totally peaceful with each other, but I do think it's safe to say things have calmed down. Keeping it heavy with another of the Big Four who had a big war of words with Machine Head. Slayer, specifically Kerry King, had been the focus of a few other bands' ire, as well as slinging out their own anger toward people. It was in the early 2000s when Slayer targeted Machine Head and their music that a few people turned their heads in confusion. In 2001, Kerry King called Machine Head sellouts for several reasons, including the album Supercharger and blaming Machine Head as, quote, responsible for rap metal. Side note, all the things metal elitists hate, rap metal is high on that list. At first, Rob Flynn tried to take the high road with the rest of Machine Head, but the weird barrage from Kerry King kept coming, so eventually they targeted King and Slayer, including saying that Kerry King looks like a wannabe member of Right Said Fred. Okay, that's not bad. It took a while, but in 2007, all parties were able to put the past behind them, and years after that, the two groups would even work on music together. Name-calling apparently can lead to business ventures. That's terrible advice, don't listen to that. England, magical country of royalty and bitter rivalries. Some of the biggest bands in music over the past 60 plus years have come from Britain. There have also been some obnoxious attitudes from there as well, including from Oasis. When the Gallagher brothers weren't feuding with each other, they were feuding with Damon Albarn and everyone associated through Blur and Gorillaz. The Battle of Britpop was calculated and vicious, even with bands releasing singles on the same day. It would lead to Liam Gallagher screaming #1 right in Damon Albarn's face to rub in their first #1 album. Oasis making the song Dixie's Dinner as a piss take on Blur's music, and general Gallagher Brothers shenanigans. There's no other term for it. In a documentary, Albarn said, Noel Gallagher used to take the piss out of me constantly, and it really hurt at the time. Oasis were like the bullies I had to put up with at school. It went on for years. Blur would win a battle, Oasis would win a war, and then at the end of it all, when the Gallagher brothers were ready to choke each other and refuse to work together, Blur was still selling and making music peacefully. You can boast and be confrontational, or you can put your head down and work. I know this technically isn't bands as it's musician versus musician, but whatever, it's my list, and the late 90s was full of this stuff. What started out as friendship both on tour and in studio, Trent Reznor and Marilyn Manson learned to loathe each other. It can happen when compromise cannot be met, insults happen, and personalities just cannot connect in the end. In the 90s, Reznor would help produce Manson's album Antichrist Superstar, and the two would share stages, but I think all that time together with one personality trying to live clean and another definitely not clean, caused some problems. Trent tried to keep it civil at the time, saying, he and I are two strong personalities that could coexist for a while, but things changed. That lasted for a while, and they would need their distance, and eventually they would not be strangers as much. But then Reznor also pointed out Manson's problems and abusive behavior when the newer Manson allegations came out about a year ago. While the feud may be mostly in the past, I believe there's still maybe some ire, and the two just don't trust each other. I mean, Marilyn Manson has a list of those feuds, though, so it's nothing for him. Metalheads and metal elitists may argue online over what subgenre is best, but keep in mind arguments like that have been going on for decades. Twisted Sister and Manowar, those are two bands who visually are different while representing heavy music, and the feud really started solely because of how Dee Snider and company decided to dress on stage. For those who are not aware, trying to call out Dee Snider on anything is normally a bad idea. If he's willing to take on Congress, he's going to take on Manowar, calling Snider and the rest of his group a bunch of, quote, sissies for their hair and makeup and outfits. How did Twisted Sister retaliate? Dee Snider challenged Manowar to a heavy metal title fight in 1983 with a time and a place, and he made the challenge publicly. The best part? Snider made sure to have news cameras and crews over there for it. So when no one from Manowar showed up and Snider started looking around for Manowar very dramatically and laughing at them, Manowar looked pretty bad. Twisted Sister one-upped Manowar this way by not only being willing to defend themselves, but to make it a spectacle as well. Side note, follow Dee Snider on Twitter, his feed is great. feelings are what fuel emo music, and it's a shame more music doesn't arise when two emo bands hurt each other. The relationship drama between Brand New and Taking Back Sunday was a big deal back in the 2000s, and you kind of needed a scorecard to keep up with who was in what band and what band member did what to whose girlfriend. It was a high school cafeteria of drama with emo bands. Back in the day, Jessie Lacey, notorious womanizer, and that's putting it lightly, was once in Taking Back Sunday, and the guitarist of TBS, John Nolan, once kissed Jessie Lacey's girlfriend. Yep, high school cafeteria drama. Brand New's debut album had 70 x 7, which was a direct shot at John Nolan. Taking Back Sunday then replied with There's No I in Team and Jessie Lacey. The bands hated each other for years with additional tracks. Even when John Nolan was out of Taking Back Sunday for a while, the groups still despised each other. Many years later, the groups supposedly have moved past the drama but still refuse to talk or work with each other, and nothing says emo like you kissed my girlfriend, so we will now have a song war. I'm ending with this one because not only is this peak early 2000s for nonsense drama between groups, but it's also between two of the biggest bands at that time, and it does not end how you'd think. And I don't mean that both bands have fallen out of popularity over the years. I mean the ending to the feud between Limp Bizkit versus Creed is as flat out ridiculous as it sounds. I can't believe this all happened. It started when both Creed and Limp Bizkit were playing on K-Rock's Dysfunctional Family Picnic concert, where Limp Bizkit showed up an hour late for their set, due in part to the band not caring about the show and being upset that Creed was billed higher than Limp Bizkit. Fred Durst would take to the mic saying Scott Stapp is an egomaniac, he's a punk, and if you want, there's going to be a booth with pillows and blankets for when Creed comes on. Later, when Creed was playing, Scott Stapp replied to the live crowd saying it takes a lot more guts to say something to somebody than behind their backs. The band then all signed an anger management book and signed it to Limp Bizkit's Fred Durst, having a handler give it to Durst backstage. Shortly after, Fred Durst was on TRL talking about Creed behind their backs again, mainly Scott Stapp. It was weird, especially when Fred Durst admitted he has never once talked to anyone in the band.
Better human than everybody. He claims all this spirituality, this super killer guy. He doesn't give a damn about any of his fans.
Did you guys have any, did you exchange any words, you and him in particular?
No, I didn't exchange any words with him. I just saved it for the stage, and it really made the show fat, though.
Creed would make a formal post saying they were disappointed at how unprofessional this all was, and then Limp Bizkit would continue to make fun of Creed at their live shows. Then Scott Stapp went public challenging Fred Durst to a charity boxing match. All proceeds to charity for them to settle their differences. Fred Durst declined, saying he didn't want to resort to violence. The singer and writer of the song Break Stuff said he did not want to resort to violence. I don't know how else to end this video besides saying, everybody sucks. And that was a look at 10 feuds between bands. Know of another big one? There have been plenty. Leave a comment and let everyone know. Big thanks to my patrons and special thanks to Chris Novoselic and Dom Noble. You can have a say in upcoming videos, get weekly new music playlists, and see videos early by supporting Rocked on Patreon. Click the Patreon link in the video description for more info. Please subscribe and ring the bell to get notified of upcoming videos, and keep up to date with Rocked on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Special runner-up entry for that time ICP tried to interrupt Limp Bizkit's set by drop-kicking Fred Durst off stage, but one of the two ICP clowns missed. It was a mess, and it was great.